If you have stumbled upon this video, I want you to pause for a moment and recognize something. It is not an accident. Perhaps you have been scrolling, perhaps you were searching for something you couldn't quite name, or maybe you arrived here without any clear intention. But there is a deeper rhythm at play in life, one that has nothing to do with coincidence. Jung called it synchronicity, the mysterious alignment of outer events with the inner state of the soul. When you arrive at the right place, at the right time, with the right message, it is not random chance. It is necessity. And if these words have found you now, it means that something within you is called for them. Maybe you cannot put that something into words yet. Maybe it feels like an invisible weight pressing down on you, a heaviness in the heart, a quiet despair that others cannot see. Outwardly, you may appear calm, composed, successful even, but inwardly, you know that something is no longer working. The life you have been living, the mask you have been wearing, no longer fits. And though it may frighten you, though it may unsettle everything you thought you knew, the truth is that this breaking point is not your enemy. It is your threshold. Carl Jung once said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, it is not by escaping, not by ignoring, not by numbing ourselves that we grow whole, but by facing what we would rather turn away from. The unease you feel right now is your soul demanding honesty. It is a summons to step out of the shallow repetitions of daily life and into something deeper, something truer. This video is not here to motivate you in the cheap sense, not with quick slogans or surface-level encouragements. It is not meant to offer you distraction or entertainment. This is not a distraction. It is a mirror. It is a space for you to stop running, to stop pretending, and to finally listen to the voice within that you have silenced for far too long. That if you are here, it is because your soul is asking you to awaken. And though it may feel like everything around you is falling apart, the deeper truth is that something far greater is trying to be born. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning. There comes a moment in every life when the carefully constructed facade begins to crack. At first, it may be subtle, a quiet discontent that follows you through the day, a heaviness in the morning when you wake, knowing that what awaits you is a life that feels more performed than lived. You go through the motions, fulfill the expectations, play your role with practiced ease, but deep inside there is a whisper. This is not who I am. Most of us try to silence that whisper. We bury it beneath obligations, routines, endless distractions. We tell ourselves that this is simply how life is meant to be, that everyone feels the same weariness, that dissatisfaction is normal, that to suffer in silence is part of being human. But Jung warned of a greater danger, not the collapse itself, but the denial of it. Because when we deny the collapse, when we pretend it isn't happening, we betray ourselves. And betrayal of the self is the most devastating wound of all. This inner collapse does not arrive without reason. It is the psyche's rebellion against a life lived in falsehood. It is the soul's refusal to keep carrying the weight of a mask that no longer fits. On the outside, you may appear successful, reliable, admired even. But on the inside, you feel hollow, detached from your own existence. That hollowness is not a sign of weakness. It is a message. It is your deepest self saying, enough. When this collapse comes, it feels like the ground beneath you is breaking apart. Things that once satisfied no longer hold meaning. Relationships, work, routines, they all begin to feel empty, shallow, and unbearably fragile. You sense that if you keep walking this path, something within you will wither completely. And in that moment of despair, you stand at the threshold of transformation. Jung wrote that suffering is not chaos, but the symbolic language of the soul. To feel broken, lost, or exhausted is not a failure. It is the signal that something within you refuses to die quietly. The collapse is the call. It is life itself tearing away everything false so that you might finally confront what is real. This is not an easy truth. Most people will avoid it, clinging desperately to the comfort of routine. But for those who dare to listen, the collapse becomes the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming whole. It is the painful tearing down of illusion so that something authentic can emerge. So if you feel yourself breaking, do not see it as the end. See it as the invitation it truly is. The collapse is not your destruction. It is the opening through which your real life begins. One of the most dangerous illusions in life is the belief that if something is common, it must also be healthy. We look around and see millions living the same way we do, working long hours at jobs that drain them, maintaining relationships that lack depth, filling their silence with endless noise. Because it is everywhere, we convince ourselves that it must be normal, and because it is normal, it must be right. But this is not truth. This is conformity dressed as sanity. The modern world conditions us to live on autopilot. We are told what success looks like, what relationships should provide, even what kind of person we should appear to be. Without realizing it, we adopt masks. Jung called this the persona, the face we show to the world so that we may be accepted, approved of, and included. But while the persona may help us survive in society, it does not help us live. The longer we wear it, the heavier it becomes, until eventually we forget the difference between the mask and the self. The trap of routine is not simply in its repetition, but in its quiet suffocation. Day after day, we repeat the same motions, speak the same words, feel the same dull emotions, until life itself becomes flat, predictable, and lifeless. You wake up, you perform, you go to sleep, and in that cycle, the deeper questions of existence are drowned out. Who am I really? What do I want from this life? Where is my soul leading me? These questions are silenced by the clamor of routine, but the soul has a way of breaking through. At first, it may come as boredom, restlessness, or dissatisfaction. Later, it deepens into anxiety, depression, or a sense of emptiness that no distraction can soothe. These symptoms are not signs of failure. They are the psyche's rebellion against the false life you have been forced to live. They are proof that your deeper self refuses to be buried. The tragedy is that many people never recognize this. They cling desperately to routine because it feels safer to repeat the familiar than to confront the unknown. But in doing so, they sacrifice authenticity for comfort, trading the possibility of real life for the numbness of mere survival. This is what Jung called psychic death, the slow extinction of the soul beneath the weight of false normality. To awaken from this trap requires courage. It requires the willingness to look honestly at the life you are living and ask, is this truly mine? Or is it the one I was told to live? Only when you dare to break free from routine, when you refuse to mistake common for healthy, does the possibility of transformation open before you. Most of us have been taught to see suffering as an enemy, something to be avoided, suppressed, or numbed at any cost. We medicate it, distract ourselves from it, or bury it under endless activity. But Jung saw suffering differently. To him, suffering was not chaos, not punishment, but a language, a symbolic message from the soul itself. To suffer is to be spoken to by life in its most urgent voice. When you feel anxiety, when you sense fatigue that no amount of rest can heal, when you feel empty even in the presence of people who claim to love you. These are not meaningless afflictions. They are signals. They are the psyche trying to tell you that something within has been neglected, something vital has been silenced. The pain is not random. It is purposeful. In fact, Jung went so far as to say that the greatest danger to the soul is not pain, but numbness. When you can suffer and still feel, there is hope. But when you grow numb, when you feel nothing at all, you have already abandoned yourself. Suffering, paradoxically, is proof that you are still alive, still connected to the deeper currents of your being. Think of suffering as a threshold, a doorway disguised as despair. On one side is the life you have always known, predictable, safe, but suffocating. On the other side is a life yet to be discovered, uncertain, frightening, but alive. To pass through this doorway requires that you listen to your pain instead of running from it. That you ask not, how do I get rid of this? But what is this trying to show me? Every myth, every story of transformation contains this moment. The hero descends into the underworld. The traveler faces the dragon. The soul enters the wilderness. These are not tales of destruction, but of rebirth. Your suffering is the dragon at the threshold. It is frightening, yes, but it is also the guardian of treasure. The treasure is your authentic self, Jung wrote. The unlived life is a disease from which one can die. What he meant was simple. If you do not confront your suffering, if you continue to ignore the messages of the soul, you will not truly live. You may survive, you may function, you may even appear successful, but inside, you will be dead. When suffering enters your life, do not see it as failure. See it as initiation. It is the portal through which all transformation begins. To walk through it is terrifying, but on the other side, you will find not the end of yourself, but the beginning. There are moments in life that feel almost too precise to be accidental. A book falls into your hands at the exact time you needed its wisdom. A conversation with a stranger leaves you with words that echo for years. A dream unsettles you with symbols that speak to your deepest struggles. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the mysterious alignment of inner need with outer event. Not coincidence, not chance, but meaning breaking through the surface of ordinary life that if you are watching this right now, it is likely because a part of you called it forth. Perhaps you have been carrying questions in your heart that no one around you could answer. Perhaps you have felt a restlessness, an emptiness, a gnawing sense that life must be more than what you've been living. And then, without planning, without searching directly, you find yourself here, listening to words that echo exactly what you have been unable to say out loud. This is synchronicity in action. Jung believed that the unconscious communicates not just through dreams and symbols, but also through the seemingly random events of our outer world. What appears as an algorithm, a coincidence, or a strange alignment may actually be the psyche's way of guiding you toward what you most need. In this sense, the universe does not speak in words, but in patterns, signs, and timely encounters. When life feels unbearable, when your soul is breaking under the weight of falsehood, something within you begins to reach outward. It searches for mirrors, for messages, for guidance, and often it finds what it seeks in the most unexpected ways, through a page, through a conversation, through a moment like this. The fact that you are here, hearing these words, should not be dismissed as mere accident. It is not by chance that this message has reached you now, at this exact moment in your journey. You are here because you are ready to hear it. The timing is the message. The resonance you feel is the proof. Synchronicity is not about predicting the future or reading signs and superstition. It is about recognizing that there is a deeper order to life, one that speaks directly to the soul when the time is right. And right now, life is speaking to you as you listen. Do not treat these words as content to consume. Treat them as a conversation with your own soul, reflected back to you. For if you are here, it is because you were meant to arrive at this threshold, and what you do with it will shape the life you live from this moment forward. There comes a point in every inner journey when reflection is no longer enough. You can analyze your pain, you can name your suffering, you can even understand the falsehoods that shaped your life, but sooner or later, a choice must be made. Transformation requires action. It requires what Jung called a psychic leap, the willingness to step out of the old story and into the unknown. And this leap is always frightening. The fear is natural. In every myth, before the hero discovers the treasure, they must face the dragon. Before rebirth, there is descent. The dragon is not there to destroy you. It is there to test your courage. It is the embodiment of all your doubts, all your resistance, all your fears of losing the life you have outgrown. To stand before this dragon is to feel terror, but to walk away from it is to abandon your destiny. Think of your own life. How many times have you felt the stirring of change, only to retreat back into the comfort of what you already knew? How many times have you silenced the call of your soul because the risk felt too great, the uncertainty too vast? We all do it. We cling to the familiar because it feels safer than the unknown, even when the familiar is suffocating us. But here is the paradox. The fear you feel is not a sign to turn back. It is the proof that you are standing at the threshold of transformation. The greater the fear, the closer you are to the place where life begins again. Fear is the guardian of the new self. It is not your enemy. It is your guide. Jung understood that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires this leap. It requires leaving behind the masks, the routines, the false normality that once kept you safe. Safety is not the goal. Wholeness is. And wholeness cannot be reached without risk. The leap of transformation is not a single act, but a commitment. It begins with the smallest step, choosing silence over noise, truth over comfort, solitude over false companionship. With each choice, the old life loosens its grip and the new one begins to take form. Yes, it is frightening. Yes, it will feel like losing everything you once knew. But what you are losing was never truly yours. And what you will gain is beyond anything you have yet imagined. The leap does not destroy you. It delivers you. So when the dragon appears, when the fear rises in your chest, do not retreat. Step forward. For on the other side of fear is the only life worth living, your own. Asterisk. One of the hardest truths you will ever face on this path is this: no one is coming to save you. Not your family, not your partner, not your friends, not even your teachers or guides. For a time, you may look for someone to carry the burden for you, someone to fix the pain, someone to show you the way out. But every myth, every psychological journey, and every life worth living reveals the same truth. The responsibility is yours. Always yours. This may sound harsh, but it is not punishment. It is liberation. Because if you wait for others to rescue you, you will remain forever trapped in the illusion of helplessness. You will give away your power, your agency, your very life to forces outside of you. And in doing so, you will remain stuck, repeating the same patterns, waiting endlessly for someone who will never arrive. Jung warned against the danger of projecting the archetype of the savior onto other people. When we do this, we turn ordinary relationships into prisons. We expect partners, mentors, or communities to complete us, to make us whole, to give us what we refuse to claim for ourselves. But no other human being can carry the weight of your unlived life. No other person can walk the path of your soul. To expect this is to demand the impossible. Radical responsibility means facing this truth without resentment. It means saying, my healing, my growth, my transformation is mine to claim. Not because others have abandoned me, but because the soul itself demands ownership. When you accept this, something extraordinary happens. The power you thought was outside of you begins to return. You realize that you are not powerless, that every choice you make is shaping your future, that even in the midst of despair you have the ability to turn toward life. This responsibility is not easy. It requires sacrifice. It means letting go of blame, excuses, and the temptation to see yourself as a victim of circumstance. But it also means reclaiming dignity. It means realizing that even in the darkest moments, you are not broken. You are being asked to step into your own strength. The path of individuation is not about dependency. It is about maturity. It is about becoming the author of your own life rather than a character in someone else's story. And while this path can feel lonely, it is also profoundly empowering. For once you stop waiting for someone else to save you, you are free to finally save yourself. So let this be your turning point. Stop waiting. Stop handing away your life. Take responsibility. fully, radically, completely. For the moment you do, you will feel the weight shift, and the life that has been waiting for you will begin. There comes a decisive moment in every transformation, the moment when reflection, suffering, and responsibility must converge into action. This is the threshold. It is the point where the old life cannot be carried any further, yet the new life has not yet fully begun. To stand here is to feel suspended between worlds, torn between the comfort of what is known and the terror of what lies ahead. The threshold is never easy. It is guarded by fear, by doubt, by the whispering voices of the past that tell you to turn back. It is guarded by the persona, the mask you have worn for so long that you confuse it with your own face. That mask will resist its own death because it believes it is protecting you. But the very thing that once kept you safe is now your prison. To step beyond it is to risk everything you thought you were. And yet, to stay behind is to slowly wither away. Crossing the threshold requires a kind of death. Not the death of your body, but the death of illusions. The death of false identities. The death of every role you performed for the approval of others. This death is painful because it asks you to let go of the version of yourself that the world has come to recognize. But beneath the pain lies freedom. When the old self dissolves, the possibility of authenticity appears. This moment will not feel comfortable. It will not feel safe. In fact, it may feel like you are stepping into nothingness, into emptiness. But Jung reminds us that this emptiness is not a void to be feared. It is a womb. It is the space in which the new self is conceived, nurtured, and ultimately born. Think of every rite of passage, every mythic journey. The crossing always comes with risk. The hero leaves the village. The wanderer enters the forest. The soul ventures into darkness. There is no guarantee of what lies ahead, and yet, every story reminds us that the threshold must be crossed if life is to be truly lived. So here you are. You can feel the threshold before you. The fear is real, the uncertainty overwhelming. But remember this. The presence of fear does not mean you are lost. It means you are close. Fear is the final guardian of the self you have not yet become. Step forward anyway. Step forward trembling, uncertain, even afraid, but step forward. For once you cross the threshold, once you allow the old self to fall away, you will discover not an end, but a beginning. This is where your true life waits. If you are still here, still listening, it is not by chance. You have heard these words because a part of you is ready to stop running, ready to stop betraying yourself, ready to take the first step toward the life that has been waiting for you. This is not entertainment. This is not coincidence. This is a mirror, and what it reflects is the threshold you are standing on right now. You may feel fear, uncertainty, even resistance. That is natural. Every soul that has ever chosen authenticity over illusion has felt the same trembling. But know this, you do not need to feel ready. You do not need to have it all figured out. What matters is the decision. The smallest act of saying, "I choose myself," is enough to shift the course of your life. The world will always try to pull you back. It will tell you to be available, to conform, to silence your deeper longings for the sake of comfort and approval. But you know now what that path leads to: exhaustion, emptiness, the slow death of your inner life. You cannot unknow what has been revealed to you. You cannot return to sleep once the soul has begun to awaken. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." That is the invitation before you now, to awaken. Not tomorrow, not one day, but now. So take this moment as a call to action. Reflect on what you have heard, but do not stop at reflection. Make a choice. Draw a boundary. Sit in silence. Step away from what drains you. Move toward what nourishes you. Even the smallest shift, if done with honesty, becomes the seed of transformation. And if these words have spoken to you, if you feel that quiet recognition in your chest, I invite you to carry this journey further. Join this community of seekers, of thinkers, of souls who are daring to walk the path of individuation, the path of becoming whole. If this message resonated, let it echo beyond this moment. Like this video to affirm your step forward. Leave a comment, even a simple "I choose to awaken," as a declaration to yourself and others. And subscribe, not just to a channel, but to a movement of depth in a world that too often chooses noise over truth. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning. The question is not whether you are ready. The question is whether you will choose. And when you do, everything changes.